Hello, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank you, all the organizers, for the opportunity of being here to talk to you. My name is Alvez Brito. I'm currently based at Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul in Brazil. And today I will be discussing about interculturality and ethnic racial relations in astronomy, education, and communication. Here I'm showing you some photos of Porto Alegre. As you can see, I'm really based in the southern part of the country. Perhaps you know, but Brazil has been historically challenged by social, economic, political, educational, scientific, and technological issues. And when you think specifically about ethnic race and think of Black and Indigenous people and how these different markers, social of the difference, is related to class or gender, we need to think of the colonialism, the capitalism, the patriarchy as global systems and how racism is related to that. So think of intercultural astronomy for us here in Brazil. It's really crucial to think of how science is connected to global systems. And astronomy is specifically very key tools to do that, because astronomy, we do take advantage of the multiple dimensions of astronomy that benefit society and trigger development. Most important, how the intercultural astronomy can help us to related education and ethnic racial issues. What is the connection, or how can you explain the meaning of blackness and whiteness? So the intercultural astronomy is a lens to this social connection. Another important thing, when you look at the Brazilians' basic public education system, we also see that astronomy is present in the whole curricula. The majority of Black people, around 70%, that are in the public education systems, they are the poor, no? The poorest ones. So we have a basic education system, poor for the poorest. Approximately only 20% of the physics teachers are graduated in physics, and indigenous and the Black communities educations require a special attention. So the intercultural astronomy is also working to do this link. So all the main projects that have been developed here in the last 2 years are trying to put all these issues together. And to do that, I'm using the sky. The sky is my favorite place to discuss about race, gender, interculturality, what science means, what is the connection between science and people. The first project, A Cotidiana Quilombo Ciência, it has been developing, trying to put Black girls together and then discuss specific questions about astronomy and how astronomy can empower these girls. All the skills that astronomy allow us to develop while doing that, put this together in these quilombos, in the Maroons community. The second project is Orumbia. Orumbia is Orum in Yoruba, in the African language, is sky, and Mbia is one of the indigenous ethnicities here in Brazil. So Orumbia is promoting the dialogue between astronomy and African, Afro-Brazilian, and indigenous cultures. Here I show some photos of people from these communities, no, the Black communities. And when you get together, we discuss about the big issues involving science and how science and technology impact people's life. Specifically, when you think of the goals, no, the developments and sustainable goals. So what development means, for instance, for these people, and how these people are connected to their land, to their territory, and their way of thinking about the universe. The third project is Zumbi da Andara dos Palmares, is a research action collaborative sort of project when we put together 15 schools, different social communities, to discuss about astronomy and also about technologies. see how I show some photos of some workshops that have been developed right now during the COVID-19. And you are doing mixed activities, some face-to-face and other ones from virtual. And here we have been work with artificial intelligence and also computational way of thinking about the different process inside. And people are using, the Black students are using their skills developed during the workshops to bring their own stories, their own lives, no? Because the knowledge in this community is also part of the politics. So other photos from these activities, and to develop all these projects, we have been using different theories and methodologies. Basically, the decolonization lens. We also bring together the thinking and the ways of thinking of Black and Indigenous people, now the Black and Indigenous identities. The ethnographic work is really key in this sense because we need all the time to be talking together in an interaction with these people, exchanging feelings, no, and ways of living. The listening part of the project, listening to the others, no, listening to people, listening what are their expectations and their frustrations in these social approximations. All these theories and the methodologies is putting together, putting the table the scientific racism as a pseudoscience, but a pseudoscience that has been historically worked to erase and to exclude Black and Indigenous people from the science process. So in this sense, we are also trying and discussing with these people this sort of thing. The cultural astronomy is our main methodology and also theoretical reference. We have been using the cultural astronomy to discuss the laws, to discuss the culture and the history of the Afro-Brazilian indigenous. And there is this connection between Black students, indigenous students with Black scientists. So in this sense, is also this sort of representation. So the history and the philosophy of science, the ways that we can build different epistemologies, the language, the psychology in the sense that we work through intercultural astronomy, the self-esteem of Black and Indigenous students. We have to remember that this self-esteem is very complicated to be, how can I say, strength in a country where the racism is part of the culture and the self-esteem is pretty much weakened every day. So the politics and the cultural things together. Some takeaway message from this, né? So all these projects try to put to us what science is, how can you interpret science, what is the relation between subject and object and nature in science, and how can you think of science, technology, development, innovation, meritocracy in a different ways from the diversity, equity, and inclusion perspective, and how can you build models in this intercultural astronomy is really important. The models, how can you build that, and how can you remaining this sort of models. The intercultural astronomy in this sort of interaction with Black and Indigenous communities is also key to look at the sustainable development goals and rethink about what quality educations or gender equality, good health and well-being really mean to these different people. So it's a great way of think of our science and our methodologies. The role of the social markers of difference in science and science communication and education. What is the power relations in science and its social constructions? How can you redefine the relations between universities, schools, and society? And of course, in this whole process, we are working to decolonize the thoughts and decolonize our methodologies at university and in the interaction with people, school, and their communities. So thank you so much for your attention.